Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek. Not just Star Trek Online, but Star Trek. Um, Thanks to you all getting our channel to 500 subscribers, I'm going to be talking about a subject that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and that's my favorite tanks in Star Trek history. Now, obviously, I have a lot of biases. Here's a slide basically saying what I will and will not be including in this list. But obviously, I have a bias towards the Federation. I have biases towards classic Star Trek stuff in terms of the TV shows and the movies, which means I will not be including stuff from the Kelvin timeline, Star Trek Discovery, or Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online is just because we have so many missions where our ships are very overbalanced in terms of their tankiness that if I included Star Trek Online would quite literally take this entire list with all the different missions and episodes, even just the ones of other NPCs that we fight with. They take so much from enemies and they don't die that it's like, well, they just beat everything else we've ever seen in Star Trek, so I guess they're the top ones. Additionally, it's got to be battles that we've seen on screen. If it's battles that are not shown on screen, I'm not going to be talking about it. It also means the comics and books of Star Trek won't be included in this either. That's mainly because I actually haven't read a lot of Star Trek books outside of specific ones for stuff talking about Star Trek Online in January and February. I have read several of those ones, and I will get to those next month. And also, alongside all those other stipulations, it's got to be a starship that is actually tanking, which means that they are defending something else, keeping them alive while they're doing something. Feel free to see the time links of these top 5 ships in the description. So my number 5 pick is from Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and we're talking about the Excelsior. The Excelsior is my favorite ship. It's the reason why this is on the list in the first place. I mean, when I used to play a game called Star Trek Starfleet Command, I actually decided to modify the game a little bit so that I could play a different version of the Excelsior at the end game that was basically a dreadnought. But anyway, the Excelsior is my favorite ship in all Star Trek. It has a really poor showing in this movie. Honestly, from a tanking perspective versus the other ones in this list. Honestly, it was there trying to say, as Captain Suda said, we'll give him something else to shoot at. But General Chang only hit them with 2 torpedoes. And then they kept on firing at the Enterprise A they're on. The Excelsior being there didn't really do much for keeping the Enterprise A alive. Sure, it got 2 more torpedoes going at them, but those last 2 torpedoes was the difference between the Enterprise A surviving and dying. Maybe that was good enough. But honestly, the objective for this scenario was give Spock and McCoy enough time to do surgery on a torpedo, which that's how they talked about it, to make a torpedo a heat-seeking torpedo, so that it'd be able to seek out Chang's cloaked bird of prey that could launch torpedoes while cloaked, so that they could actually target it and destroy it. And it only took like another 4 torpedoes, and this thing was destroyed. Pretty cool bit of cinema, but it's also a lot of hits on the Enterprise A. All right, our number 4 pick is from a DS9 episode called Shattered Mirror from season 4, episode 19. I really like a lot of the mirror episodes in DS9 in particular. Also, Enterprise's 2-part mirror episode is also pretty awesome too. Fortunately, there's no tanking in most of those episodes, unfortunately. But in this episode, our tank is the ISS Defiant. This is mainly on here more because escort tanks can be semi-viable in Star Trek Online, so I figured I might as well have an escort type of thing on this list as well. Just because you're able to take off a lot of heat from your allies from doing one of 2 things. Either one, basically being a meat shield, as in is for most of these scenarios here, or second, you can be so evasive that the shots are just going to miss, and so it doesn't matter that your ship's not necessarily as durable. If the shots never hit you, but they're always going at you, then you're doing your job as well. This one isn't just a defend for a period of time. This one was actually a the Defiant with a couple of shuttles and things, or a couple of fighters actually, trying to protect Terok Nor against the Klingon-Cardassian alliance. There was Mirror Worf in the region flagship trying to take back Terok Nor, where they were unsuccessful because of Mirror Hera. The battle itself went on for a little while. The final part of the battle was the ISS Defiant with a fighter piloted by Mirror Bashir against the region flagship. Make sure that Terok Nor stayed protected. In my opinion, this is only moderately effective just because the Defiant did a lot more attacking than defensive stuff inside of this episode, so I'd call it moderate. But it'd still be a lot more of a balanced kind of tank type of build of what you probably would want to see in Star Trek Online as well. Because of all those reasons, that is why this is number 4 on this list. So my number 3 is from one of the fan favorite episodes of Star Trek Next Generation called Yesterday's Enterprise. As I said before at the very beginning of this video, it has to be battles that we see on screen. So unfortunately, the Battle of Narendra 3 can't actually be what this episode's climax theme would be. So instead, we get the Defense of the Enterprise C. It's the best title that I could come up with for this scenario. Basically, the Enterprise C is accidentally sent into the future with its battle against 4 Romulan warbirds. We don't know what types of warbirds because we never see the actual battle, but it's 4 Romulan warbirds. So my assumption is the temporal rift was caused by a Romulan warbird's singularity core exploding and causing a rift that they go through. Regardless of what caused the rift, the Enterprise C is sent into the future because of its lack of stuff in the past. The Federation is in a losing war. Enterprise D repairs them a little bit and sends them back in time. Like a lot of these battles, in TV time, it's a 4-minute battle of the final defense of protecting the Enterprise C. During this battle, the alternate future Enterprise D does destroy 1 bird of prey. And Picard does some pretty smart tactical stuff in this. Pretty basic from a tanky perspective. While the enemy is in range of you but not of your ally, you put almost all of your power to shields so that you survive as long as possible. Whenever they start to get the inkling of wanting to attack your ally, then you switch more power to your weapons so that they really want to attack you. Pretty smart. Considering the Enterprise C is not attacking, if you have one guy who's attacking and one that's not, and you're someone who wants to be able to win the battle, you're obviously going to be attacking the person who is actually attacking you. That is a logical assumption. It makes perfect sense. Enterprise D did what it needed to, distracted the Klingons enough so that the Enterprise C could re-enter a temporal rift and return to this battle and save the Federation. Pretty awesome episode. My number 2 is from another DS9 episode, the season finale of Season 2, called the Jem'Hadar. Jem'Hadar are a pretty potent enemy inside of Deep Space Nine. Probably one of my favorite enemies inside all of Star Trek, right behind the Borg. Actually, the Borg are super awesome, but they kind of get dulled down a little bit in Star Trek Voyager. But anyway, I don't know a real title for this actual battle. I mean, it's them rescuing Sisko, so that's the title that I have there for this, Operation Rescue Sisko. This is a very effective showing for the USS Odyssey. So basically what happens in this episode is Sisko gets captured. His shuttlecraft with Jake and Nog are left in space around the planet that they're trying to survey. And the Dominion says that they've captured Sisko and are going to kill him unless they surrender and stuff. So USS Odyssey is sent to DS9 to go ahead and rescue him because Sisko is obviously super important and more valuable than a Galaxy-class starship, apparently. So the Odyssey goes with 2 modified shuttlecraft from DS9, and they go to save Sisko. And so basically, in this 4-minute battle, which the captain of the USS Odyssey, I can't remember his name anymore, but he dies heroically and honorably. He says that he'll protect them for 10 minutes, and then they've got to leave. O'Brien beams over to Sisko's original shuttle and starts scanning for Sisko to try to find him and beam him back up, and then so they can go ahead and depart. During this battle, the USS Odyssey is seen as fighting 3 Jem'Hadar attack ships, which their weapons are like going straight through his shields, and they're like, oh, our shields are ineffective against them. All right, all power to weapons, and let's just make our phasers hurt really bad. And they actually push him back, and then they're all successful in everything. Of course, the Jem'Hadar are really stubborn, and they wanted to make a point, and so one of the Jem'Hadar attack ships, probably the one that was damaged the most, does a suicide run against the Odyssey, and they are both destroyed. Pretty unfortunate, pretty tragic. A lot of the people are saying like that's meaningless because it's like, we were retreating. Why would you want to keep on attacking us? They have some great lines in that. This is only number 2 because it's kind of undercut by what was said at the end of the episode, because it was actually the Dominion's objective for Sisko to escape. So that was kind of sad. But overall in this episode, it was a very great defense and strategy by the Odyssey of what they did to make sure that Shellcraft didn't get hurt too bad, and that Sisko was able to get back to the Federation space. All right, so for our number 1, it's actually going to be an episode that is from a series that used to be fairly hated among the Star Trek community until we got Star Trek Discovery, and now we hate that one much more. And it's from Enterprise, from, in my opinion, one of my favorite episodes of the entire series there, which is called E Squared. It's from Season 3, their season-long story arc. And so yeah, so basically in this episode, Archer meets his future past like crew that's like generational. I don't know how to actually call this older Enterprise. Is it from the future? Is it really from the... I don't know. It's an alternate future-ish Enterprise. Super old, over 117 years old. There's actually a couple of battles throughout this episode of them fighting, but overall, in terms of all the tanks in this list, this one is completely unmatched. The fact that it still was as effective as like the previous slide, as the previous numbers, plus that it was a super old ship that didn't get like help from like other star bases, lasted this long, and even though it failed its normal objective, it still went and tried to save itself from the future past. I don't know how to actually call it, to be honest, but the final battle here in the Kovaalan Nebula is 4 minutes long, even though they say that it's 6 minutes. Star Trek likes their 4 minutes of TV time inside of space. Maybe that's a magic formula for something in Star Trek. Maybe one of you all in the comments can tell me why 4 minutes is so awesome in terms of Star Trek battles. I would love to hear your theories and stuff. But yeah, it's the alternate NX-01 protecting the NX-01 against 6 Kovaalan starships. The point is for this Enterprise to get into the subspace corridor so that they can meet up with someone who's going to get them to the Xindi conference so that they can hopefully avert a war. And of course, stop history from repeating itself. Honestly, inside this episode, whenever these ships are fighting, they're on equal terms, even though this ship is substantially older. They have some pretty cool strategies inside of the Nebula itself during this 4-minute battle, with like reflecting sensors and things. And then when this guy gets too hurt to move, the alternate Enterprise tractors them basically into the subspace corridor. And then when they have enough momentum that they'll go in even without their engines, the alternate turns back and starts fighting the remaining Kovaalan starships. Super epic from a tanking standpoint. Maybe it's not the best Star Trek battle of all time, but it's definitely the best tanking one in my opinion. But of course, those are just my opinions. Feel free to include in the comments what other ones you think should have been included. Maybe I shouldn't have excluded the USS Kelvin from the Kelvin timeline. Maybe I shouldn't have excluded the USS Shenzhou or the USS Discovery from the Discovery TV show in one of those battles. Anyway, any of those or other ones, feel free to include it in the comments. If you like this, feel free to like and subscribe. I mainly talk about Star Trek Online, but I'll also talk a little bit more about Star Trek Discovery as well and its implications inside of Star Trek in general, starting in January. But yeah, anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.